Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on what to know about REOs. My name is Mia Simo, and I am the Agent Relationship Manager at Equator, and I'm your host today. Just a few housekeeping tips. I want to let you know that all attendee lines are muted. If you have any questions, we encourage you to type your question in the question box. During the last 10 minutes, we will address any common questions that we see so everyone can benefit from the answer. We may run out of time to address everyone's questions, so we will answer that directly by email by the end of the day. Also, we will be emailing a link to this presentation to all attendees tomorrow. At the end of this webinar, we will also provide the phone number for our technical support help desk and also to our agent development team. Now I would like to introduce our guest speaker today and our presenter. Her name is Sharon Bartlett, who is the owner and principal consultant of Sharon Bartlett Consulting. Now, she may be very familiar, this name may be very familiar to a lot of you on the call today because Sharon has a lot of years in the default space, 34 years to be exact, at Freddie Mac. Prior to her consulting business that she recently started, she has 34 years, like I mentioned, at Freddie Mac, and she held various management positions in REO, operational risk management, loss mit, loan servicing. But Sharon's area of expertise includes what is near and dear to everyone's heart today: default management, asset management, REO operations, vendor management, contract negotiations, and I could go on and on and on, but you get the idea. And that is really why we asked Sharon to be our guest speaker today. She has a passion and a commitment for helping professionals achieve their success they deserve. So please welcome Sharon and take it away, Sharon.
And thank you again, Mia. I'm pleased to be here with everyone today and to share the information that I have about REO with everyone. So it's no secret that REO volumes are down in most areas of the country. And while there are still pockets of volume, they're primarily on the East Coast. So those of you like in the Southwest and on the West Coast are not seeing what you had seen previously. Needless to say, there are still REO properties out there. We'll get a little bit more into that in a minute. But the good news is that it appears that our economy is improving, and that's important to all of us. And even though it may mean we have less REO, it is really good for the economy that the housing market has improved. So as a result, the number of seriously delinquent loans has dropped to the lowest level that it was in 2007. So lower defaults mean less REO properties. So there's a couple of different reasons why we're seeing less REO. I want to talk for a minute, though, about the decrease. So in a recent report that I read that shared statistics from 2015 to 2016, there was actually a 31% decrease in the number of loans that were in foreclosure at some point. But there were still over 300,000 of those loans that were in default and headed towards foreclosure, if you will. So there's still REOs out there to be had. One of the things, too, I wanted to share with you is as I meet people, quite frequently they'll introduce themselves as an REO agent. And so one of the things I wanted to do today is kind of challenge everyone on the phone, even if you work primarily in the REO space, is that really you're a real estate sales agent. You may specialize in REO, but I wouldn't put all of my eggs in the REO basket. And if you've heard me speak at conferences in the past, I've been given that advice for years, even when the volume was much greater than it is now. And, you know, I like to work in thirds, and I share this as well. And so, you know, recently I became a licensed real estate agent in Texas. So that's now a third of my business. So if one part of my business is down, I still have 2/3 to carry me. So I don't want to be in a position where if I were to lose REO accounts, that would be, you know, the end of me financially or my business. So I use the other 2/3 to keep things rolling. So let's move on to the next slide and talk a little bit about what to do while you're waiting. So the volume's not there currently, but the volume will come back. It's going to come back looking a little bit differently than it did probably previously, because many of the home buyers that were helped out in the past will not be able to be helped this time. And a lot of that will come from modifications that ended up not being successful. But I want to talk a little bit about some activities that you can do while you're waiting on the volume. And one of those is networking. And I want to level set us first on what networking really is. So networking is interacting with others to exchange information and develop contacts. So I like to say that networking is a process. It's not an event. So you may go to an event to network, but it's really a process. So, and many of you have been through this before when you're trying to get a new REO account. You may meet someone at a luncheon or at a conference, and you're hoping, as soon as they get back to the office, they give you properties. And we all know it doesn't typically happen that way unless you happen to be in an isolated area that they needed assistance in. And so that's a relationship that you need to foster. So there are some wonderful organizations out there that can help you facilitate that, and you're probably familiar with a lot of these. I personally am involved with the minority real estate organizations like AREA, NAREP, NARAB, WINS, and NAWRB. So I think all of those are excellent organizations. They all fill a different need because their members and their goals of their organizations are a little bit different. So, and then you have industry-related groups like 5-Star, REO Mac, NRBA. There are still many of those organizations as well. And so you can't join them all, or financially that would be very expensive. So I would recommend, and I recommend to my clients, that you pick a couple that you feel like you get the most out of. So something that is, maybe near and dear to your heart. If they sponsor or support a special organization that you're interested in. So, so definitely use those opportunities to network. Also, networking, even with real estate agents, provides great opportunities for referrals. And fortunately now, as a licensed agent, I can take advantage of those referrals in a different way. I've referred business for years, but I've not really ever benefited financially from that. So it's an opportunity that's out there for all agents. And as you're out networking with clients, I would also network with agents, and they can even help introduce you to clients, especially if you're not in their market area. So if you're in a non-competing market, I know several groups of agents that get together and they actually visit clients together. Some may know one client and work for them, and others another. So they help each other. So that's my point with that. I'd like to share some of my favorite tips for networking. And these come from an article that I wrote last year that were published in DS News. And one of those is prepare before you go. So if you're attending a conference, don't wait until the day of the conference to start planning out who you want to meet while you're there. Reach out to those contacts in advance of the conference and try to set up meetings with them, even if it's just a minute to introduce yourself to them. My second piece of advice is to dress to impress, or dress professionally at any rate. Even though you may be at a conference in a warm setting or a resort type atmosphere, you're still there on business. And so I would say, always put your best foot forward when it comes to that. While you're there to network, you're also there to learn and engage and share. So by that, I would just say take advantage of the sessions that are offered during the conferences, especially when I go to Vegas. There are a lot of people that just don't even attend the sessions, and they don't even know what they're missing. They're missing great opportunities to network with the speakers, and the speakers can introduce you to people as well. So, so take advantage of that. Business cards. Make sure you have business cards. A lot of times people run out of business cards, and I don't think you should ever run out of business cards. Make sure you have more than enough business cards. Stick a few extras in your suitcase so that you have them available. And then take some time to create some conversation starters. And by that I mean, in addition to like an elevator speech, have some topics in mind that you want to discuss with the person that you're meeting. They can be business related. They could be about maybe an activity or sport that you enjoy and you may find that you have in common with that person. So I know that the ability to network comes naturally to some people and not so much for others, but the good news about that is everyone can become better at networking. You just have to follow a few simple steps. And if you'd like to learn more about how to enhance your networking skills, feel free to reach out to me. I help my clients with that a lot. It's something I enjoy, and I'd be glad to help you with that. And then finally, networking opportunities, and I touched on this briefly, but they typically come with an opportunity to enhance not only your knowledge but your skills. So while you're out networking, take advantage of those as well. And then also, so it's a great time for you to expand your community knowledge and support. So as the REO volumes are down, take advantage of this time and look to partner with real estate companies that are like-minded. And when clients look for agents and brokers to handle their properties, they also look for people that have similar interests. So clearly it's not one of their main qualifications, but all things equal, if you have someone that's very active in their community, they're going to stand out in that interview more than someone who has no involvement in their community. Plus, your support provides additional opportunities for networking. So again, this is another group that you can network with and expand your skills and knowledge. And then, knowledge is power. So make contact with your local Chamber of Commerce and community development departments, and then share those insights with those that you're looking to do business with. One of the things I loved to get when I was at Freddie were emails from agents, and that sounds funny to some of you, I'm sure, but I did enjoy receiving emails that included information about what was going on in your market. So things that were specific to the market that might affect how we sell REO properties. And so I would encourage you to share your knowledge with those that you would like to work with. So Mia, how can agents use the Equator platform to help them shore up while they're establishing their name and waiting for additional REO properties?
Well, that's a really good question, Sharon. And just before I say that, I want to say I agree with everything you've said. Those are really good tips so far that you have mentioned. And I can say this based on my 10 years experience in the REO management department at Homecomings Financial and GMAC. So you are spot on with everything you're saying. But moving forward now to Equator, I can tell you that we have a lot of great ways that agents can market themselves to the servicers on our platform. And if you're not familiar with Equator, we are a technology provider that banks and servicers use to manage their default properties. In fact, we have 4 of the top 5 default servicers in the United States managing their assets on our platform. Now, creating an account with Equator is free, and having an account is absolutely free. We do offer optional ways to market yourself, educate yourself, and set yourself apart from the crowd. One of the ways is subscribing to what we call Agent Elite, and this provides 3 things. You get certification training, which is training on the Equator platform that helps you become familiar with how to use the platform and gives you the advantage of not slowing down your asset manager on their work and your tasks. REO Market Insights is up-to-date information about REO data that is on the Equator platform. So it's providing transparency, everything you wanted to know about Equator, what's the volume level, what's in my area, you will have this information at your fingertips. REO Alerts is the third feature to this, and it will tell you when a new asset has been forwarded onto the Equator platform. This helps you be in the know. So we also have one more piece that you can market yourself on Equator with, and it's called premium placement. And that allows you to ensure a spot at the top of the asset manager's search when they are seeking a listing agent in your area. And these are purchased by zip codes. So using these tools and networking with Sharon with what you said is a great strategy so far. But I think now we need to move on to what happens when an agent gets a listing. What can they expect? What are your tips on that, Sharon?
Okay, thanks, Mia. Yeah, so there are some definite strategies to deploy once you get the REO listings. And one of the things I'll point out, and it's kind of the obvious, but you know, with lower volumes in most markets, there are more agents than there are properties to go around. And so the competition is stiff out there. You need to find that one thing that sets you apart from your competition and use it to your advantage. So that is one of the things that I help my coaching clients with. And it often takes someone with a different perspective to help you identify what that really is. But if you know it, then utilize that skill for going after additional business. And it's important that you know what you signed up for. And this is one of the things at Freddie that was very frustrating for us, because we know how hard agents and brokers work to get the business. And it's a shame that once they get the business that they don't always get to keep it. And when I think back on the majority of the reasons that people were removed from the network, it primarily goes back to the fact that they didn't understand what they signed up for. So they didn't read that master listing agreement. And I mean every page, every line, every word. And I know nobody really wants to do that, but if you don't, then you don't really know what you've signed up for. And you may end up losing the account that you worked so hard to get. So if you don't want to take the time to do that, then maybe you have someone else on your team do that for you and type you up some cliff notes so you know exactly what you've agreed to do. And also, the other thing is the cost. It's not cheap to handle REO properties. It's on average, you need $3,000 to $5,000, you know, depending on the client and what they have you pay in advance for them. But typically $3,000 to $5,000 that you're out of pocket for 45, 60, in some instances 90 days. So make sure that when you go after these accounts that you have the funds in reserve that you can actually service them to your client's expectations. And then, of course, you know, the term time is of essence you're very familiar with. Well, that certainly applies to REO, from the acceptance of the assignment to completing that very last task. So I know some of you have experienced recently tasks that have been put out there, and they're actually being put out to multiple agents at the same time. So you have to be on your game there to actually get that property. And then if we can move forward to the next screen. So following the requirements of the listing agreement and the other instructions that are provided by the client are just that they're paramount. If you're going to be successful, that is one of the things that you need to be mindful of. And they may send you an email every day, and some of it may not be interesting to you, but please take the time to understand what they're asking you to do. And then if you're asked to do something that is against the law, which happens sometimes, you're the expert, the asset asset management company, that's why they hired you. They're relying on you to keep up to date with all the codes, all the laws and regulations and policies that go on. And so if they're asking you to do something that really is not in their best interest, I would find a way to politely and professionally point out that that is not probably the best option, and then offer another solution. So the key there is to do that politely and professionally. And then the last tip here I would add is the importance of having a solid internal infrastructure. And by that I mean not just staffing, but also technology. So those are going to be extremely important in your REO practice, as well as having a quality control process that relates to your contracts. That's a must. You should have someone else review every contract before you submit it to your client, just to make sure that you've hit on everything that needs to be hit on. And then moving on, maintain good accounting records. So many clients are going to have you pay for things in advance, and you need to keep good records so that when it's time to submit for reimbursement, you can get your money back. So that's important. And then this next one I could talk about for a day just by itself, BPOs. The importance of having an accurate BPO with good comps, a narrative that gives some real color around the property, and then photos that really give a good idea of what that property looked like. Those are more important than your business card. That kind of is your business card, if you will. So, and then follow up on closings. I know a lot of work ends up being handled by the title company and the closing agent, but continue to follow up with your client on closings, as well as with any of the partners that they have that are working on that. And then finally, diversify your business. And again, if you've heard me speak at all over the past few years, I have encouraged people for many years to diversify their business. And I like to do thirds. I do that in my own business, and as I work with clients, that's kind of one of my recommendations.
Okay, so thank you. Yeah, sorry, we were on mute. So thanks, Sharon. This is amazing information that you shared with us today. It's very appreciative, and I think everybody on the call is excited to hear what you had to say. We have a lot of questions coming in, but before we go to the questions, I wanted to thank everybody for joining. And because you joined today, we're going to give you a special discount on the products that I talked about. If you prefer just to have the standard account, that's fine. That is free. But if you'd like to invest a little bit more in yourself and upgrade to Agent Elite, we're giving $100 off. So the price for that will be $299 and 15% for premium placements for 12 months. So to redeem any of these offers, just log into your account and put the following coupon codes in. If you do not have, if you're not watching this presentation, we will be, like I said, we will be sending out a link tomorrow, and you can grab the coupon codes tomorrow. And if you'd like more information, you can call our specialist at 424-220-1197 or reach out to them at agentdevelopment@equator.com. All right, so behind the scenes here, helping me with questions is Nick Brito. And you've probably heard his name before, too, because he sends you a couple emails a month telling you about our specials and giving you information about the REO market in Equator. So he's helping me behind the scenes answer questions. I'm going to go now to the question board that he has flagged for me. And between he and I and Sharon, we will try to answer your questions here. So here's a question from Joseph. I've been trying to get in with Fannie and Freddie and haven't had any luck. Any advice on how to stand out to them so they will choose you as their agent? I've already signed up on their websites. We are a highly experienced REO team, and have sold over 1,000 plus REOs. How can I do this? That's a great one for you, Sharon.
Yeah, that is a good question, and I meet people all the time that are in the same shoes, and I know it's frustrating, but I can speak for Freddie probably a little bit easier than I can for Fannie. So Freddie is only going to add real estate agents when they have a business need. So they won't sign you up or add you to the network if they don't have a property to give you, which, believe it or not, really is a good thing, because there is training that's required, and there's a cost to that you would bear. And so, they don't want to put people through the expense of signing up and not actually getting assignments. So if you get signed up, and if they're going to actually, reach out and interview you and give you properties, then then at that point, provided you do a good job, you would continue to get properties. But your question was around how to stand out, and depending on what market you're in, that varies. So, like if you're in California, for instance, it's kind of hard to stand out. There are a lot of real estate agents in California, and the volume is just not there. Now, if you're in Oregon, you can stand out a whole lot easier in Oregon than you can in California. And actually, Oregon's one of the states that Freddie is actually looking for people in. So one of the things that I would suggest is that you visit Freddie's website, the Home Steps website, and they post every 2 weeks by state the counties that they're sourcing in. And that's a great way for you to know if they're looking for someone or not. And at that point, if you see a county that you cover on that list, then I would send an email to the supplier services mailbox. Now, that is managed by a real person. Someone will respond to you, although sometimes the email may feel like it's just a done email. It's not. Someone is replying to you. As far as standing out to, I would look for opportunities to, be at conferences that the REO staff is at, and this is with any client, and introduce yourself. Don't put a brochure in their face, or don't try to monopolize all their time, or pass a business card under the stall in the bathroom. Those kind of things are not necessary, but at least, meet them, introduce yourself, shake their hand, and give them your business card. And then you're going to have to just be patient and wait. That's really my best advice in that space.
Great. Thanks for that, Sharon. Here's another one from Timothy. Can a new agent have success in REOs? And I know you touched on that a little bit, but what can a new agent that's trying to get into the REO business, how can they succeed, and what should they expect?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So the short answer is yes, they can succeed. Is it going to be easy? No. But REO is not easy to start with. But one of the things I would suggest is to find someone, a more seasoned REO agent, if you will, that might be willing to mentor you or to partner with you, that can help share information and help you learn how to deal with some of the craziness that comes with managing REO properties. But if you get an REO property, at that point, your main focus is going to be ensuring that you are meeting the requirements that your client has outlined. Whether it be inspect the property every week, whether it be making sure that that contracts are filled out completely. Whatever the task is, you need to do that to your very best. And also joining some of the organizations I mentioned might be beneficial to you. A lot of those have local chapters, and I find that they are all very willing to share information, and they're just a helpful group.
Great, thank you. Here's a very interesting question, and I kind of stuck on this one too because I'm not sure of the answer. Let's see. Where did it go? I'm sorry, I have several questions in here and I just lost that one. All right.
Hey, Mia, can I switch the slide over too so they have my contact information?
Sure, yeah, because there's a lot of people asking for your contact information. Let's go to that one.
It looks like some people are dropping. So before they drop, let's share that. And I'm welcome to, I'd love to speak with people outside of this as well. So my email is there, and they're welcome to reach out to me after the fact. But did you find the other question?
Thank you for sharing that, yes, because a lot of people want to know how to get in touch with you. So here's a good one. Do asset managers choose agents based on office location or agent qualification?
Oh, okay. So, well, that one is kind of almost a three-sided answer. So for many companies these days, for Fannie and Freddie in particular, for the most part, the asset manager doesn't assign the property. The properties are assigned by the system, and the system is set up based on parameters that the vendor management team puts in. So they should be assigned, based on first, typically, is location, so your proximity to the property, and then second, experience. So they wouldn't have added you to the network if you didn't have the level of experience that they were looking for. So once you're on the network, at that point, they're going to look for proximity to the property. So again, just like with most real estate transactions, it's location, location, location. Well, that comes into play on the REO process as well. But if you haven't been added to the network, say you have two agents that are looking to join the network, and they only have a spot for one, that's when your experience will come into play more heavily.
Okay. That's great. This is the one that kind of threw me. This is from Carolyn, and she says she's new to the REO listing agent world, and she got a shock from one of her sellers. They sent her a 1099 miscellaneous for 2016. She said she didn't make that money. It was the utility bills and other expenses that she paid up front. So that's her question is, it's like, why would she get a 1099 on money that she's spent up front for utilities?
Right. So that's a good question, and she shouldn't have gotten a 1099 for that. So I would have definitely reached out to their accounting department. Those are reimbursable expenses. The only thing that she should have received, and she wouldn't have probably received it anyway because they're paid through, she shouldn't have gotten a 1099, not for that at all.
Okay, that's what I thought too. Thanks for that.
Yeah, okay. So I would reach out to your client.
Okay, so Meg wants to know what are some suggestions on how to network with lawyers? How do you do that? When and where?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So especially if you want to handle probate, and these days there's a lot of opportunities in that space as well. So there are several organizations that are out there. Like 5-Star has the Legal League. That I didn't say that probably very well. So it's Legal League, like a ball league. So they have the Legal League. It's a group of attorneys that they get together and have meetings, and quite frequently those are open and other people can come. So that would be one way. There are a couple of other real estate organizations that have like attorney branches, and off the top of my head I can't think of what those are. But I'll look it up, and maybe we can include that in the notes that go back, because there is one in particular, and the acronym has just slipped my mind. But so you would network with them pretty much like you would anyone else. I don't know that it would be different.
Okay, thank you for that. Someone also wants to know, what is the difference between Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac?
Well, so I'm trying to figure out how the best way to answer that is, because I mean, of course, my allegiance is to Freddie, even though I'm not there. You know, after being there almost 35 years, I feel like one, I grew up there. I have a lot of friends there. So, but when you look at the business of it, basically, Freddie and Fannie do the same thing. Fannie, though, is much larger than Freddie. So you could say that Fannie is Freddie's bigger sister. They serve the same missions. They're both in conservatorship under the same regulator. So really the main difference is, initially before conservatorship, well, they still are separate companies. They're their own companies. They have different policies and procedures. They don't necessarily do things the same way. And honestly, that kind of makes sense because their volume and the markets are not necessarily the same. So even when you look at REO properties, there's an overlap clearly, but there are some markets that Fannie clearly purchased more loans originated in that state than Freddie did because their number of delinquencies are higher. And then vice versa. There are some states for Freddie, but basically they do the same thing.
So this one is kind of, okay, we'll just ask it in terms of Freddie Mac. Is it true that Freddie Mac still only allows one agent per office?
Okay. So, so I can answer that for Freddie. I'm not sure Fannie's policy. So here's how Freddie looks at it. The relationship that Freddie establishes with realtors is actually with the broker owner of the company. And really, it's up to the broker owner to decide who they want to handle properties. So they can pick one person, two people, three people. It's whoever they want. Now, sometimes the real estate agent is the one that actually brings the opportunity to the to the broker owner. They may not have even been aware that an opportunity existed out there. And in a lot of those cases, the broker owner will allow that agent that brought the business to handle it. But that's really up to the broker owner. If they decide they want it, they can take it. So it's the agent number is decided by your broker or your owner. So if you're hearing something different than that, I can tell you that's not true.
Okay, great. Miriam wants to know, what are asset managers looking for when selecting an agent for their listing?
Well, okay, so again, most of the time, it's not the asset manager that's making that decision. Although with some asset management companies, it definitely is. The asset manager decides versus the system. And so, unfortunately, when that happens, you can start looking at situations where maybe the best performer is not the one that's chosen or the one that's closest to the property. It could be someone that this asset manager has worked with in a long time. They trust them. They know that they're going to do what's required of them. And so, they could choose to work with someone that's a little bit further off or not performing as well. I think there's less of that goes on than in the past, and probably there's less because there's less REO. But there will always be, situations where the asset manager, decides based on probably not the best reasons of who to use. So, in those circumstances, there's really not much that you can do about it. I mean, you can raise the issue as a concern, as far as a concern that maybe something else is going on, but that could be a double-edged sword for you. If you're on the network, you may never see another asset, and if you're not on the network, then you may never get one. So, in that space, I kind of say, pick and choose your battles, but in a situation where that someone is, I don't know, twice as far away and you're both on the network and your scorecards look good, then you might want to just ask the question and say, hey, could you look at my profile on your system and make sure that you have my market area set up correctly? Because it could be an honest mistake. It could be that somehow through a system upgrade or a conversion or just human error with entering data that your market area got entered incorrectly and they didn't even know that you handled that market. So those are some options on how you could handle that.
Great. Now, I know we're going a little bit over our time, but we still have so many more questions, and a lot of people are still online. So are you good, Sharon, with sticking around a little bit longer?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be glad to.
Okay. All right. And so we are getting questions about the coupon. So I'm going to put this slide up again. And also the agent development phone number and email. So we've changed the screen so you can see what the discount is. But here's a couple questions. There's a couple more questions. So Mary would like to know, how do we contact the buyers of Fannie and Freddie's NPLs, their bulk sales?
Okay. So that's an interesting question. So, and I did touch on it briefly in my comments around, lower REOs. That's one of the reasons our pre-foreclosure note sales that are taking place. And Freddie and Fannie both do that, as well as HUD. Actually, most people don't know that HUD is the one that started that. Probably, I think it was back in 2006. It may have been 2007, but that's when they did their first note sale. And Freddie and Fannie, several years later, jumped on the bandwagon. So the good news is that for the most part, that information is public data. And so you can get to it. The information, it's out there and available. It's not always easy to find, but they do tell you who is purchasing the pools, and they will tell you what state the pools are in. Now, unless you were a bidder, if you were an investor that bid on the pools, then you would have a list of what the actual properties and cities were in those states. Other than that, that information is not typically disclosed to the public, but the same people are buying these notes over and over again. And so you just have to do a little research. I've actually compiled a list of all the sales that HUD, Fannie, and Freddie have done to show who these investors are and kind of where these properties are. And it painted a very, very different and an interesting picture because as far as I know, this data is not out there combined anywhere. So I've been doing some research in my free time, which is not a lot these days, but so you just have to do some research.
Okay, that's good. Research is good. How do they find their Freddie Mac account number to reactivate? James was frozen out and needs to reactivate it again.
Okay. Well, I would contact the vendor management team. There is, I believe, on their website a link that you can use to send an email. Now, I would encourage everyone else that's listening that does not have this issue not to just start jumping on and sending emails to this website because, again, if you're not in one of those areas that they're sourcing for brokers, chances are you're not going to get the kind of response you're looking for anyway. But you can definitely have your ID reactivated if it's become inactive through contacting them. There's also an 800 number on Freddie's website. It goes to the call center, and the call center can walk you also through the process of reactivating your ID.
Perfect, thank you. So
Sure.
In this declining market, Sharon, several agents have received their letters from Fannie Mae that because of the declining inventory, they're right-sizing their agent network. But Freddie Mac doing the same thing? I'm seeing that agents are saying that Freddie isn't doing that, and them being smaller, why aren't they doing that, or will they be?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So so there is kind of a different, as the person that asked the question pointed out, a difference in the size of the two. But that really doesn't have anything to do with right sizing. The volume of REO certainly does, but Freddie, for the most part, they've already gone through their right sizing. So if they're not sending letters now, that's because in those markets they feel like everything is adjusted and where it needs to be. But so I would say over probably the past year and a half to 2 years, Freddie did actively right size. So if you weren't right sized during one of those activities, I mean, you're safe for now, but as volume continues to decline, they will continue to look at whether they need the number of vendors that they have. So, you know, the key for you is your performance. You know, make sure your scorecards are good, that you're meeting your timelines, that you're completing your task on time.
And this also validates what you said about you need to diversify. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, because if that happens, then where will you be?
Right. Unfortunately, you know, before I left Freddie Mac last April, you know, there was a significant right sizing that took place, and it was very sad to receive emails and phone calls from brokers and agents that we had worked with for years, and you know, they were devastated because basically they lost their business. Well, they lost their business because they didn't diversify. So again, it goes back to, you know, if you look at your real estate license, you're a real estate sales agent or whatever your state calls you. You're not an REO agent. So specialize in REO, and I would encourage you, if you handle REO, I'm not saying now's the time to jump out of REO and do something different, because again, there will always be REO in some market, in some fashion, but don't let REO be your bread and butter. Diversify and handle other parts of the business as well.
Yes, great information. A couple more questions. So you mentioned $3,000 to $5,000. What is that for?
Okay, so again, it's going to depend on the specific client. So some clients will pay for upfront expenses themselves. They'll use their own vendor, and that vendor pays for it. But in other markets, the listing broker is expected to handle those expenses. And what I mean by those expenses are the initial trash out. And you know, with REO properties, sometimes there's a lot of trash. So you got to pay for the trash out. An initial property clean. That's the other thing. Not only are they loaded with trash, they've not been cleaned in sometimes years. So they've got to be cleaned. The outside has got to be maintained. You've got to establish utilities. Depending on the client again and the market, you know, they'll tell you specifically what utilities they want on, and in what circumstances not to turn it on. But so the broker or the agent is responsible for establishing those services and paying those bills, and then typically they'll submit to be reimbursed by the client. So that's where the 3 to 5 comes in. So, you know, if you're looking at a trash out, initial cleaning, initial yard, establishing utilities, possibly winterization, and the reimbursement time is, you know, 60 days or greater, you've got 2 months of expenses. So, you know, it can go over the 5 as well, and it can be less than 3. But so I think a good rule of thumb is, you know, if you've got 10 REOs that you're handling, you probably should have, you know, 30,000 or more to handle those properties in your account, because your client's not looking for you to submit the bill and then pay the bill. That's not how that works. That gets people in trouble quite frequently.
Yes, we've heard a lot of horror stories about that. That's really good information. Okay, so there's some questions around BPOs, and I know that asset managers on the Equator platform really rely heavily on a really solid BPO, and they rate their agents' performance on how the quality of the BPO is. So where can agents get the proper training to do a good, solid BPO?
That's a good question too. I mean, we've had some really great questions. So there are several ways of doing that. Like, there's some organizations out there that have some pretty good REO training. I think VRM University has some good training, and I don't believe that you have to actually be a VRM vendor in order to have access to that training. You just have to be willing to pay for it. But they have some pretty good training that's out there. Like, I know for Freddie trains their brokers their own way. So, and I'm sure Fannie does. Well, I know Fannie does the same thing as well. So your client quite frequently will have some training that they offer to you. But if you don't yet have clients out there, I would definitely check with VRM University, and they have a very easy to use website. And then really, that's the only thing that comes to mind. The other thing that might work is to, again, you know, I mentioned earlier about partnering or having a mentor. So maybe you can find someone in a non-competing market that is willing to kind of walk you through the process and teach you how to do the BPO.
Good. Thank you for that. Now, we still have a lot of questions, but we're going to answer them offline. If your question did not get answered, we will answer them today. One last question, because I know that I hear this a lot too in Equator, and maybe Sharon, you can share your experience on this. Why is it that the REOs are all going to the same agent? And it's hard for agents to break into a new client. There are several reasons why, obviously, this happens. From my perspective, you know, the asset managers like to be loyal to the agents that are loyal to them and do a good job. But anything could happen at any moment where there's going to be an opening for a new agent. That's my perspective. Yeah. Sharon, what do you think? Why is it always the same agent?
Yeah, so I agree with that 100%. And a lot of it does go back to what I said as far as, you know, they've developed a relationship, and this is someone that they've proven themselves that you can trust them. And, you know, so it's the asset manager's reputation as well. And it's their job to get these properties sold. So, of course, they're going to want to partner with someone that they know that's going to get that done. Well, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get it done too, but this other person has already proven it. And so I think they do it because it's an easier decision. It may not always be the best decision, but it is an easier decision. And so, you know, when you're, you know, these asset managers have large inventories that they're responsible for. And with the volume down, and they haven't just right-sized in, you know, externally with their workers, they've also right-sized with their staff. So some of the staff is handling, you know, 2 to 3 times what they used to handle. So, you know, it goes back to that time is of essence thing. You know, they're going to do what is going to save them time as well. So I would just say don't give up. You know, if you're passionate about it, if you're good with REO, keep doing what you're doing. Look for opportunities to try to get, you know, in front of them, not in their face, but in front of them. And, you know, the time will come at some point when that person messes up, or they go out of business, or they move. Yeah.
So, and this also goes back to your point, Sharon, where you have to network, and you can't just create an Equator account and think that the business is just going to start flowing in. You have to do all the other networking. And if you look at the agents that have a lot of the REOs, they're at every conference and every meeting that servicers are. They're there. And that's really hard on agent schedules, but they have it figured out. And it's because they are where the servicers are.
That's
true. You have to be seen. Okay, it looks like we're out of time. And thank you, Sharon, so much. This has been very valuable to everyone on the call today. And we're going to be doing more. Equator does webinars twice a month. So stay tuned. We'll send you out information on the next one. And Sharon, I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks at REO Mac.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mia.
And anybody else on
the call,
if anybody else is going to REO Mac, come see us. Equator's going to have a booth. We're also putting together a panel on Sunday from 2 to 4. Sharon will be on the panel, as well as about 5 other servicers talking about REO. So if you can't make it, reach out to me, and maybe we can do another one similar to that on a webinar. All right, everybody, have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the week. And thanks again, Sharon. See you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye now.